Welcome to the second video in Scriabin's atonality, where we explain the Mystic Chord by analyzing 3 example pieces. We'll discuss how Scriabin used the Mystic Chord in terms of modes, transpositions, subsets, and voicings. First, let's clarify exactly what we mean by the Mystic Chord. The YouTube channel 12Tone has a good video investigating this, since some information you might find on, say, Wikipedia is a bit misleading in seeming as though the Mystic Chord is just one particular voicing of a chord. He came to the conclusion, as I did, that the Mystic Chord can be understood in terms of set theory and refers to any group of pitches that belongs to set 634, also known as 6.2. Scriabin thought of melody and harmony as 2 sides of the same coin, saying, "Melody is harmony unfurled, harmony is furled melody." This means the Mystic Chord can refer to both melody and harmony and can include any mode or voicing of set 6.2. Scriabin often used subsets or smaller chords within the Mystic Set that we will highlight. So what makes a group of pitches part of set 6.2? When they fit into a scale that is just like the whole tone scale, besides one pitch being altered up or down 1 semitone. The name 6.2 comes from our evenness ranking system discussed in a previous video. It means it's the second most even 6-note set right after the whole tone set. When we move each pitch of the whole tone scale down a step, we get 6.2A modes, and if we move them up, we get 6.2B modes. All of these modes could be considered mystic chords, though Scriabin had his favorites that he used more often than others. The most common mode he used, and the main mode you'll hear about from other sources, is the second mode of 6.2b. Let's see how we might analyze a late-era Scriabin piece that conveniently uses this mystic mode starting on C. While we don't have a mystic set played simultaneously as a chord, when we analyze the pitches spread across the first 2 bars, we get the second mode of 6.2b, C, D, E, F sharp, A, B flat. We omit the D flat like we would in a tonal analysis because it's functioning as a lower neighbor non-chord tone. You can do your own analysis of Scriabin's sets by typing in the pitches that sound together into a set calculator and omitting the pitches that appear to be non-chord tones. Let's talk about how Scriabin transposes the Mystic Chord. Understanding how his harmony moves is important because Scriabin is frequently repeating the exact same musical material at different transposition levels. Historically, composers have been concerned with parsimonious voice leading, which is a fancy way of saying they often want to make chord changes that require the smallest movement possible. If the whole tone scale is transposed at the level of 2, 4, or 6 semitones, all its pitches are retained. Since the Mystic Set is only a small derivation from the whole tone set, the most parsimonious voice leading occurs at those same transposition levels for the Mystic Chord. When the Mystic Chord is transposed at those intervals of a whole step, major third, and tritone, 4 pitches are retained, with the other 2 pitches moving only a half step, making these transposition levels ideal for smooth parsimonious voice leading. Let's observe how Scriabin transposes his Mystic Chord smoothly by looking at the first piece that kicks off his late era, Opus 58. We begin with an ambiguous subset. Then we get the rest of the Mystic Set based off C, 5th mode of 6.2b. Then in the third measure we get an F sharp in the bass, giving us that common second mode again. Then we transpose the first 4 bars to D, starting in measure 5. So we had mystic chords built off of C, then a tritone away to F sharp, then a major third away to D, and that D brings us to a whole step from the starting C position. This demonstrates Scriabin moving at all the transposition levels that provide the most parsimonious voice leading for the Mystic Chord. This +6-4 transposition movement is very common in Scriabin's music, and I want to talk about the particular importance of transposing a tritone in Scriabin's atonality. I think it's fair to compare Scriabin's frequent bass movement of a tritone to the tonic-dominant relationship of tonal music. The bass moves a similarly large distance as from tonic to dominant, and Scriabin uses the tritone relationship to conclude harmonic progressions or to end pieces. It may seem far-fetched for now, but I will keep pointing out the movement of a tritone, and perhaps you will agree that the tritone bass movement is foundational to his late-era music in a similar way as tonic and dominant are for tonal music. Let's take a look at one of my favorite short pieces based on the Mystic Chord that uses different modes than those we've described so far. Opus 71, number 2. Starting on measure 14, we have a subset of the Mystic Chord based on F. Then we move a tritone to B to the second mode of 6.2A, which is the inversion pair of 6.2B. Then we go back to F using another subset, 528, as a simultaneously occurring chord. Then we move down a major third and back to our tritone dominant. And down another major third to B, and we end this section with tritone movement from B to F. This excerpt shows the tritone tonic-dominant relationship, as well as transpositions related to the whole tone scale, and we see that the Mystic Chord includes modes from 6.2A as well. For pieces based on the Mystic Chord is the superset for which only it and its subsets are allowed in the music. Very often he doesn't play an entire Mystic Chord, but rather 4 or 5 notes from the Mystic Chord. One prominent subset is the French 6 chord, and when we stack a 4th on top of it, we get the 528 set, which has been mentioned previously. I could make a whole video on these subsets, but I'll lastly mention my favorite subset of the Mystic Chord is 530, which we hear in Opus 69. Scriabin liked using fourths voicings for all sorts of different chords. In his middle era, he started voicing major scale chords in diatonic fourths, and in his late era, he sometimes voices the Mystic Chord in fourths, giving us the Wikipedia voicing of the Mystic Chord. I have only really found one instance of this particular voicing in his music, and that's in the beginning of Prometheus, the Poem of Fire, based off of F sharp. Though his fourths voicings are notable, he voiced the Mystic Chord in a myriad of different ways, including using thirds and fifths. In summary, the Mystic Chord is a set, 6.2, that Scriabin uses as a framework for many of his works. Pieces based off the Mystic Chord almost only use the Mystic Chord and smaller subsets within it. The Mystic Chord tends to be transposed based on its similarity with the whole tone scale, and a quasi-tonic dominant relationship is achieved by transposing a tritone away. Next video we will talk about an equally prominent set in Scriabin's music, Scriabin's octatonic hexachord. What's your favorite use and voicing of the Mystic Chord? Let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, and support me on Patreon.